So we'll be looking at the pioneering work of the Roman Catholic missionary in West Africa. So before this particular topic, there's actually the topic of how Christianity came to Africa itself. Remember, they talk about North Africa, how the contact that Christianity had with North Africa. That's the Christian contact, where we talk about Abraham and Joseph, that Abraham came to Egypt, then Joseph also was in Egypt, and then Jesus himself also had to be taken to Egypt by his parents. So we're just, that particular topic was talking about the contact that Christianity had with North Africa precisely, So after that particular topic, next topic is the Portuguese effort in Christianizing Africa. So when you see a question like earlier missionary effort, they're actually referring to the Portuguese. You get? So it was after the Portuguese that we can now talk about after the Portuguese left and it was not successful, then we had, after the revival, the Evangelical revival, then we had other Christian missionaries coming to Africa again. So one thing about the Portuguese that stood out for them is that they were involved in slave trade. Yeah, they were involved in slavery. So let's start with the Portuguese effort. So from what I have in your textbook, access to commodities such as fabrics, spices, and gold motivated an European quest for a faster means to reach South Asia. So it was this set that led the Portuguese down the coast of West Africa. So what we are saying here is that what brought the Portuguese to West Africa, what brought them was that they were looking for access to fabrics, spices, and gold. Like there are a lot of things that we had in West Africa that they were interested in. They wanted to trade in it, and that actually brought them to West Africa in 1460. So the first missionary incursion into west coast of Africa was pioneered by the Portuguese in the 15th century. And the popular prince of Portugal, known as Henry the Navigator, was the principal initiator. So Henry the Navigator was the initiator. So you can say a question like, talking about Henry the Navigator, what they want to talk about there is the Portuguese effort, to their pioneering work in West Africa. So these people came to West Africa basically because of the trade. They wanted to trade with us. So no Europeans had ever explored the west coast of Africa. Like no Europeans had ever done that. So Henry the Navigator did not investigate the coastal waters himself initially. So he had sent orders to the west coast of Africa to find a way around the Muslims who were trading in the Sahara. So to just to reduce the stress of finding out, navigating through the sea themselves, like through the west coast themselves, they had to so what Henry did was that he sent Muslims who were trading in the Sahara, like they should go and find out from them, that they should find out from those Muslims the route that they took, to West Africa, and they were able to do that comfortably. So when they got how to get to that place, they had other missionaries like the Roman Catholic mission had to join them. So as those Portuguese were coming to trade, Roman Catholic mission were coming to what? To convert people into what? To convert people to Christianity. So the initiator of missionaries in West Africa in the history of Sierra Leone were the Roman Catholic, and there's this the priest, Father Balthazar. So he was the one that actually baptized the King Philip of Sierra Leone and continued working his way through the west and north to teach and recruit people into the Christian faith. So talking about Portuguese effort, they were in Ghana, alright? They were in Ghana and they were able to set up a trading post in Ghana. They were also in Warri and Benin in Nigeria. So they tried to establish church at Warri and Benin, but their major interest was actually commerce. So like I said, Roman Catholic mission went with them. So they were accompanied by the Portuguese explorers. So they came in contact with the Warri people in the 15th century, and then when they got to Warri, alright, they met the king then, and then the Olu of Warri, under the name of Sebastian, actually welcomed them, and then he encouraged their work and allowed his son Domingos to be sent to Portugal to be trained as a priest. So what I was trying to do is that when those Portuguese, when they leave At least they want someone like an indigenous priest that can continue their work and all that. But unfortunately for him, Domingos could not become a priest because he couldn't hold himself from sleeping with a woman, which is contrary to the stipulation of the Roman Catholic law. Like, you cannot be a priest and be sleeping with, a woman. Like, they are celibate. So the plan of the Olo of Warri didn't work out. So his son had to come back to Warri after spending almost 10 years in Portugal. So they tried other attempts to train indigenous priests, but those attempts, failed. It failed. And another reason why it failed was that, they had some superstitious belief by the people, the Shekri people, like, don't baptize us and everything like that. So that's the encounter with the Warri people. Then they also went to Benin. So getting to Benin to spread the gospel, and at that time, what happened was that the Benin people were having, I think it was there was an issue with the Benin people. They were in a battle at that time. So the king had to tell them to come back. Had to tell them to come back. But by the time they got back, the king was no longer really interested in the whatsoever message that they brought. So let's look at they can ask you that what are the reasons for Catholic missionary exploration. That's the Roman Catholic missionary, the early missionary work in West Africa. What are the reasons? Like I said, they have two major reasons. We have commerce and then to also evangelize. So the main reason for their coming was to buy supplies and other needed materials that were abundant in the continent. So the Portuguese buy spices from India, but they had to pass the Islamic territories, and the risk was too high. So instead of them to pass those Islamic territories, that's why they had to come to Africa. So they came to Africa to trade with us, and then they buy pepper, ivory, silk, leather, and gold. And also the second reason why they came to West Africa was to spread Christianity. So they were able to achieve this to some extent. Most of the Portuguese slave traders took Nigerian slaves to be sold in the America and parts of Europe. Hence, they were not committed to missionary work. So one of the things that actually affect their work, which is the topic we are going to next, is that buying those stuffs. The one thing that they did was that they were trading slaves. So they would give us some things for humans in West Africa. So they were taking our people to they're taking their people to their place, and that was one thing that affected their mission, that didn't make it work. So let's talk about the factor that led to the failure of Christianizing Africa by the Portuguese. They can ask you that what are the factors that affect Christianizing Africa by the Portuguese? What are the factors? So one factor that affected them was slave trade. Yes, that was one factor that affected them. Most of the slaves were carried from the west coast to sugar plantation in America, where they were treated as beasts. I heard that when they were dead, they kind of padlocked their mouth so that they would not be able to feed on those sugar cane and all. So they treated them like beasts, and then this actually prevented the church from being established because Africans were being deceived with Christianity. Meanwhile, suffering awaits them. So they tend to come to them, preach to them, and those people think, oh, they meant well. They meant, and I think that, I'm not so sure, but I think that some of them will even be eager to give them their child. Like, these people that can preach to us, they look so good, skin fresh and everything, not knowing that they are taking their children to, as slaves in their place. Then another factor that led to the failure of this pioneering work was the climate of the area. So the climate of the area was not favorable. Like the climate of West Africa was not favorable to the missionaries. The place was only too humid. It was too hot, and then it was infested by mosquitoes. So that led to their death. A lot of them died. And another factor that led to it is fewer funds. They didn't have enough money to support their missionary work. They did not have enough money to support their missionary work. So that's another thing that affected their work. Then, like I said, the fourth thing is superstitious beliefs. I said the first factor that affected their work was what? Slave trade. The second factor that affected their work was what? Hello? What's the second factor that affected their work after slave trade? Okay, so the climate affected their work. Then the third thing is that they had fewer fronts. They didn't have enough fronts. Then the fourth thing is African superstitious belief. You know, and like I said, they believe that children should not be baptized. And you know that the belief that these remarkably missionary have is that by the time they tell you about the gospel and you get converted, you are meant to be immersed in water like Jesus did. But these people believe that if their children should be immersed in water, they will die. So that makes their salvation not to be completed. So the superstitious belief actually affected their work. Another thing that affected their work was that they kind of focused more on the noble class. So they were not able to get a large quantity converted because, you know, it's the noble class that give them slaves now. You get, so they kind of focused more on them. So they were more interested in what's it called, the noble class. So as a recap, the slave trade, decline of Portuguese empire because of poverty of that kingdom. Then I mean, when they don't have enough funds, that means they will not have naval power. They will not have enough people. You know, when they come, they definitely have to come with securities now. They will not have enough naval power. And then they were not successful to train indigenous priests. So that actually led to their work, you know, coming to an end. So let's look at factors responsible for the success. Like this is a revision this day, so you can still go back to your book and, you know, sit down and study well. All right. So we have factors that led to the success of Christian mission in West Africa. That is the pioneering work of Christian missionaries in Africa. What are the factors that made their work to be successful to some extent? So one of the factors is that the tolerant nature of Africans. So we actually tolerated them. You know, they were warmly received. All right. So I said the tolerant nature of the indigenous people. So we actually tolerated them. They were warmly received by them. So that actually helped them to be able to, you know, spread the gospel. And then another factor responsible for the success is the favorable atmosphere. You know, and the material benefit Africans tend to gain. The things they tend to gain. So what we are saying here is that when they came, Africans also had things that they benefited from them. One of the things I can say that benefited was their security. For example, you know, when they were in Benin, when they were in Warri, the Benin people were actually in a battle with the Warri people. But the fact that they had Europeans there, they couldn't wage war with them because, of course, if you are fighting, let's say for instance, you have two towns that are fighting now, and we have like those Europeans in a particular town. You know, they have to protect their Europeans. The war might lead to the death of the Europeans too. So they actually brought that security to that environment too. That's another reason why their work was successful, because Africans were also enjoying some things from them. Like the Oluwabori wanted to maintain his independence from Benin, therefore he favored the Portuguese. So many towns that were threatened by internal or external enemies also welcomed the missionaries for security reasons. Then another factor that led to the success is unlimited divine right of rulers. So what we are saying here is that the rulers had like unlimited power. Nobody can actually question them. So like for instance, let's say the king said, oh, so person, go and bring your child, they are following these people, you know, and you say that whatever the king says is superior, so you can't question it. So that also made them to be able to achieve their business, you know, plan and all that. So it was the opinion of the rulers that they could wield more power on themselves through the support of Catholic missionaries. So they worked with the Catholic missionaries because they believed that, oh, when the people welcome them, you know, whatever the king said to them, they will also listen to the king. So those are the factors that led to the success of Christian missionaries, the early Christian missionary in West Africa. So let's look at their achievements, all right? The achievement of early missionary efforts in Sierra Leone and Nigeria. What were they able to achieve, you know, when they came? So they established trading stations along the west coast of Africa. They established trading stations where they could trade with people and all, you know. we're told that at that time there was a shortage of gold, and rumors were spreading that there were states in South Africa, which had gold. So this news actually encouraged this expedition that they could actually get gold in Africa, and they were actually able to achieve that. So the Portuguese trade in gold and slaves, and they were able to increase their they were able to increase the trading stations that they established. Then the Portuguese encouraged the growth of brass casting in Benin. They encouraged the growth of brass casting in Benin. If you know, there's what we call brass in Benin. Most of their, if you go to the Benin Palace, there's something like brass. I think probably they used to put it on their head or something. But there's this. I have the picture. You can check online for what the brass is. So they encourage the growth of brass casting in Benin. So when the Portuguese in Benin, started trading brass and copper for pepper. So what they do is that they will bring brass to us, take pepper, clothes, ivory, and all. So brass alongside copper pots and pans were imported into Africa for trade. Do you get now? So that's what they do at the trade station. So they bring brass to us, which we were using, and they took our pepper, clothes, ivory, and all. So research by British museum scientists has shown that objects like this were melted and made into works of art, such as the Benin bronze. So those brass were melted and then made into Benin bronze. Also, the Portuguese brought the use of guns to Nigeria. They brought the use of guns to Nigeria. Of course, when they are coming for security purposes, they definitely have to come with guns. So guns were new to the people of West Africa when Portuguese arrived. So Africans traded them from Europeans and learned to make them for themselves. So for them to get guns from those European people, they had to trade something in exchange. I don't know, probably they were trading humans in exchange to get guns. But at the same time, they learned to make their guns themselves to help them in their wars against other people who still only had weapons or bows and arrows. So the Portuguese also brought about slave trade. So the king of Benin himself was in charge of trading slaves, ivory, and other important goods, so that all the profits went to support Scott and government. So talking about the achievements, I mentioned that they were able to establish trading stations. Then they were able to they traded brass together, pepper, ivory. Then they brought guns to Nigeria, so they encouraged Nigerians to start making their guns. And also they were successful with the slave trade thing. They were able to increase their fund, and then they were able to convert souls. So that's also part of the reason why they came. So they were able to convert souls at Warri. Even though they couldn't achieve much because of the superstitious belief of the Shekiri, but the Lord of Warri gave them room to explore their land, and his households were baptized. So that's basically all about the early missionary work in West Africa, the early missionary work in West Africa. So the next topic will be the evangelical revival in Europe that now led to them coming again. So you know that, like we said, we mentioned factors that led to the missionary not being successful, the mission not being successful. We said talk about the superstitious belief, the climate and all. So that means they had to go back. Some even lost their life, but they still came back. So, but the evangelical revival led to them coming back. So that's really the next topic that will be treated. The description box for the link to get your copy. Okay, thank you.